On social media, some Hispanics are saying, why aren't the blacks helping and supporting them during this time? Be careful, you guys, because they're going to come after you guys next. And who's going to be there to help you when it's your turn? Respectfully, that is the stupidest, most self-serving statement I think I've ever heard. I'm quite frankly sick of it. My name is Shanda, and welcome to In the Deep End. First off, I want to say, we didn't come here illegally. We were imported against our will. We didn't come here running for our lives, scaling mountains, cutting through fences, and swimming through snake-infested waters. That was you guys. Then when you get here, you immediately start kissing the ass of the whites and turning your nose up at the blacks. A lot of Hispanics, not all, but a lot, look down on black people, talk shit about us, publicly degrade us, people who have been here for hundreds of years and endured unimaginable atrocities and treatment. You disrespect, devalue, and marginalize us every chance you get. Again, some, not all. Why would you even want someone that you look down on to stand in lockstep with you? Oh, I know. So when the shit hits the fan and it gets real out in those streets, you want someone to point the finger at and tell the police, the blacks did it. Everything was peaceful until they got here. Hell, some of you are doing that already, even though there are sprinkles of us, if you could even call it that are out there protesting. When things go wrong, you want a scapegoat to blame. You want to say, we were just protesting peacefully. The blacks did it. The blacks did it. The blacks started those fires. The blacks were looting those stores. The blacks were throwing rocks at the police. Or when you see blacks getting their heads bashed in, what's the first thing that's said? Well, they should have complied. When the blacks are in the streets getting shot down like dogs, what is said? Well, he should have listened when they told him put his hands up. We know how this works. We know all too well, unfortunately. We have had decades upon decades of experience. And for some of you who get on social media and say they're coming for you next is laughable. Because don't you know? Don't you know? We've always been the intended target of America's wrath. You've just been added to the list. Now, if you want to talk about this administration coming after our civil rights, well, you may have something there. That is something that we could possibly be in for. However, we'll cross that road when we get to it. We've driven these bumpy roads far too often than we would have liked. We've been driving these roads, walking these roads since we stepped foot on this land. This is our everyday story. Over the years, we've tried to put you guys up on game, but you were so busy tap dancing, wanting to be accepted by the whites that you couldn't hear us. You were looking down your nose so far that you couldn't hear it, didn't want to hear it. You hoped that with your hard-working attitude and your alignment with the whites, whether it be through voting or everyday action, that you'd be accepted. You were hoping they would overlook your accent, your olive-colored complexions, and your black hair. But you just got handed your N-word card, didn't you? And I know it's hard to process because you thought you were different. I get it. We can empathize with you, believe me. And you know, to add insult to injury, you guys believe in that, what is it called? How do you guys say it? The mejorar la raza? To better the community by making it as white as possible. Like this picture right here. You discriminate against this person and cater to that person with the possibility of getting this person. So your bloodline no longer looks like this person. But you want people who look like me and look like this woman in this painting to help you in your time of need when you devalue everything we are. Make that make sense for me. I can tell you this. I am an American. If ICE approaches me, I can produce 3 generations of birth certificates on both sides. And before that, I can produce sharecropping cards. We have been here since the 1600s, and some even earlier than that. We were here long before most people came through Ellis Island. We have been here, enduring the wrath of white America, and we are still standing. And your nerve that some of you come to this country and have the nerve to look down and smirk at us. Look, at the end of the day, Hispanics, some, not all, some, not all, think they are better than black people. And that goes for the Mexicans, the Guatemalans, the Cubans, the Dominicans. All of them have a certain feeling about black people. When I say all, I mean all groups within the Hispanic community, not all people. Some of you might say, how do you know? You don't know anything about our communities other than what you see on social media. Well, I do indeed know all about your communities. I grew up in a suburb of Los Angeles. My parents moved there in 1962. It was an all-white community. At the time, we were the only black family on the block. And of course, that came with its own challenges, as you can imagine. But we were there for about 17 years or so before the whites started to move out and the Hispanics started to move in. It eventually became about 95, if not a little more, percent Hispanic. It changed overnight. When it began to change, it changed drastically and quickly. When they first started moving into the community, I was probably in my pre-teens, maybe 10, 11, something like that. And It was about 1978, 79, something around that time frame. And uh, just to give you guys an idea, we lived, when that 95% took over, it became, we were right in the middle of Puente 13 territory. And for those of you who don't know, Puente 13 is a Mexican gang that is tied to the Mexican mafia. Okay? And let me share a story with you guys. There was a family by the name of the Lozanos. They moved in and they had about 12, 13 kids, something like that. And the majority of them were boys. They were all gang affiliated and terrorized the neighborhood. This one particular morning, the neighbor called my mom and said, Lena, have you seen your garage? And she goes, what's going on? The neighbor said, go out and look at it. My mom went out the door and I followed her. And she looked at the garage and she went, oh! I'll never forget it because my mother was not an emotional person. I think I've only seen my mother cry maybe one time when her sister died. So I was scared at that. Our garage was beige, 2-car garage, beige. And it had big black spray painted letters, nigger, with an exclamation point. Well, my mom and dad had gotten divorced a few years prior to that, so she was a single mom at this time. So she went to the hardware store and got a gallon of paint. And when she came back, her and my brother painted over it. And as they were doing so, Gino and Ruben and all those guys that did it were standing not directly across the street, but this way at the next house. And they're laughing and snickering and pointing and stuff like that. I'll never forget it. But my mom, being who she wasn't going to say anything because she also knew that we were on an island all by ourselves. And she could not afford to have an issue with these people. So after that happened, as the years progress, everybody becomes acclimated to each other. I spent a lot of nights at Hispanic people's houses. I've had a lot of friends that were Hispanic. I've eaten at their dinner tables. I've gone on vacations with their families. I have participated in countless quinceañeras. I have made tamales on New Year's Eve with their abuelas. I have participated fully in the Hispanic experience. There are some Hispanic people that I still hold dear affection for because my life was so consumed within their environment for such a long period of time in my real informative years. And it gave me an insight that a lot of Black people don't have. Now, unfortunately, I have had positive experiences within the Hispanic environment. I have also had negative experiences. I've been shunned by Hispanic people on several occasions in my youth and my growing up within their community. I had a friend one time that you know how you're outside as kids and you're playing and stuff and they're going in getting snacks and whatnot, and a lot of the time they would always be able to come into my house, right? And we get snacks and go back outside. So this particular friend was going to her house. She wanted to go get something to drink and something to eat really quick. So I'm thinking, okay, the same way you come into my house, I'm going to go in there with you and get a snack and stuff the same. Well, I was stopped at the door and said, she said, you're not really allowed to come in, so I'll be right back. Because my grandparents don't really like black people. That was probably my first experience with racism to that degree. Even when I was living with the whites, nothing but whites, I really didn't experience blatant racism like that. So, I also lost a really good friend that I had at the time. Her uncle came from Mexico, and we were riding bikes and stuff and jumping rope, stuff like that. And the uncle and the uncle and her dad were in the garage. They were listening to music, stuff like that, drinking beer or whatever they were drinking at the time. The uncle said, you shouldn't be hanging around with that mayate. That was the last time we enjoyed jump roping and riding bikes and skating. Now, I didn't know what that meant at the time. And I went home and told my mom about it, and she's like, I don't know what that means. But she didn't think anything about it because I had been playing with this little girl for a long time. I've also worked on jobs in the human resource department, and I've seen Hispanic people come into the human resource office and complain about black employees for the smallest, minute things. I remember this time where this one guy came in and said he didn't think Lawrence was working fast enough because he was talking all the time. I've seen blacks lose their jobs for some of these complaints that would constantly come in from the Hispanic employees. Now, granted, a few days later, their brother-in-law, their brother, their uncle, someone in their family would be at the job applying for the job that the black guys just lost. I've seen it more often than I would have liked to. In California, it got to a point where, Southern California in particular, because that's what I'm familiar with, it got to a point where a black person couldn't buy a job because the Hispanics are in hiring positions and they will not hire you. Now, sometimes you're given a reason that you don't speak Spanish. Therefore, you will not be a help in that particular position in which you were applying. Can you imagine? You can't get a job in a country that your ancestors fought, died, and built. That is the reality of living in a predominantly Hispanic community. They have no intention of living in unity with mutual respect. I remember going to the Hispanic grocery stores. They look at you like, what the hell are you doing in here? I am not making this up. I am Scout's honor. I am not making this up. I experienced it live and in color for years. I'll get off that soapbox. I've also been hearing a lot of Hispanic people on social media saying that, Mexico opened its doors to runaway slaves. And you guys don't appreciate it. You're showing us right now that you don't appreciate it. Well, did Mexico do that? They did. According to historical records, approximately 3,000 to 5,000 runaway slaves found refuge south of the border. And they received protections. And I can't deny the truth about that. And that was a great thing that Mexico did. However, Hispanic people have been mistreating blacks ever since. You don't get unity points for something Mexico did 200 years ago. And if you had followed through on unification and mutual respect, the situation we find ourselves in now would have been much better and beneficial to both parties. But that's not what happened. Instead, you wanted to go with the ideology of bettering the community, which means distancing yourself from the blacks and aligning yourself with the whites. Don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. We sympathize and empathize with the position that you have found yourself in. And honestly, we wish the absolute best for you. But Black people must conserve our energy, strategize effectively, and choose our battles wisely. Because when the pendulum swings back, and it will, we have to be ready and focused on the betterment, survival, and safety of our community. Because uniting with you at this present moment has no benefit to our cause. Thank you guys for watching. And please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys again next time. Bye.
So respectfully for the Black community, I have a question. So if Trump is trying to defund
Mexicans, leave the Black community alone. They don't need to come to these gatherings in LA just so they can get locked up because people are actually rioting instead of protesting. It's just going to add more fuel to the fire. They already have enough that they're going through on their own. The lady in the beginning of the video was saying that Black and Brown need to come together and fight the orange man. But the other lady said, no, you haven't even reconciled your hatred towards us. As a Mexican American, I don't hate Black people. Y'all are cool as hell. We might have differences every now and then. But I like people on the basis of their character, not the color of their skin. No matter what race you are, maybe I won't like you because of the type of person that you are, but that's neither here nor there. Mexicans, let the Black people do what they do. They got their own shit going on. If you're out there peacefully, keep doing what you're doing. Make sure they don't tie you with these other crazy individuals because you will be going to prison after this is all said and done. Don't get the Black people involved in this because then it's going to get really bad. Then the violence is going to get really, really bad.